So we really want to continue hearing from you and thinking about what you're bringing to the table as ideas and input for us to build the program. So we have been talking a lot about our Aspire objectives and what that looks like. The three in the middle pretty much stay the same. That's our law, state law. And then one of the things to really think about with our objectives is that we're really starting to look at it through an equity lens. Those of you that have been around for a while, the last couple of years, you know, we've started having some conversations around equity. We want to continue doing that. And we want to continue making sure that our materials really reflect the Oregon's equity lens and that our materials reflect that, which a lot of you have expressed in the coordinator survey. One of the things that is new, it's been talked about as within our program, but one of our objectives that we are going to state very clearly is that we want to help create a career and college readiness culture within your sites, within our program, across the state, with all of our partners. And hopefully all of you noticed what word is first there. And I'm looking at faces. So, you know, a little smile or something or nod. Or, all right, thank you. So we really want to put career first. The next three probably aren't new for you. Provide mentoring and resources. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. It's what we have been doing. However, we are diving deeper into each of those pieces to start building the program out, especially on the third one where we're looking at other options for paying for post-secondary education, and post-secondary education includes that career piece, that career component. So always remember when we say post-secondary education or college, we're thinking trade schools, we're thinking certificate programs. And then the last one is also new. And that's because of all of you, that we want to support you to become sustainable through a customizable Aspire program. That's very different than what some of you know. I'm looking at some of you that have been around for a long time. And you all have done this, where we were a traditional one-on-one mentoring program. And you all are like, no, we're actually more than that. And so we've been really capturing that. And you'll see us rolling that out and us talking about it more this year. So one of the things that we did is put out a coordinator survey, one of many. A lot of you have seen it before. So if you have not submitted this, you're like, we've done this before, don't want to do it again. Please do it. Rochelle's going to send out the link in the chat if she has a link to it. If not, we'll make sure you get that. We only had 50 responses through January 6th. We did have an additional 6 come in after that, but the results that I'm going to talk about today are those 50 responses. So the final deadline to submit is January 21st. So if you have not done that, we will get that link out in the chat today or follow up in an email. I am going to go quickly through the survey results because they're not complete yet. I'm not going to send this PowerPoint out, so don't even ask. I'm just kidding. After we have all the results, after January 21st, and we do a final assessment, we'll send this out and say, okay, here are the responses. So I'm not going to give you a lot of time to look at this. What I do want to highlight is that we asked, what does your school or site facilitate? A lot of you, thank goodness, you have career and college readiness happening within your school. But some of these are kind of small numbers. And we've heard from you all and research and other programs that these things are important. So as we start getting these results and knowing that you've submitted them, your access specialist will work with you and say, hey, do you want to do anything about this? Or is just this something that, you know, is out of your control, or how can we help? So we will be looking at those on an individual basis, but then also as a program wide on how we can expand our program. What resources have you used? So many of you said, you guys got to work on your website. But what I was really happy is that 41 of you out of 50 are using it. Well, 47 for this particular question. So thank you for continuing to use it, even though it is lacking a lot. Rochelle and I are working very hard on that right now, and we'll get that going. Happy that 40 of you are using Fafsa Plus. If you are not, you need to. So talk to your access specialist about that. And hopefully you know about the Fafsa Plus completion campaign. Lots of things happening in our office. So what other would you like to see? Again, financial management is a big piece of it. Is college worth it? This is a much bigger conversation. but really why? We have so many students now that are like, no, thanks, not going, it's not worth it. So you've asked us to kind of expand on that a little bit. The financial aid process start to finish. So we kind of deal with the end of it, but you all want to know more about the beginning of it and what happens after a student submits and how did they find out? And then culturally sensitive topics, which the answer didn't quite make sense to me. So we'll be reaching out to folks, but I like it, even though I'm not exactly sure who it's directed towards. I was really happy to see that, especially with our equity lens. So what 3 areas should we work on for students? Careers, always careers. And then OSAC information actually came above college. So as a college access program, traditionally from 1997, I hope we're doing a decent job there. So OSAC information was like the second. Translations, again, equity lens. And then you want more videos and webinars. What 2 Aspire resources need to be improved? There's 4 because we asked you for 2, but these are the 4 that came to the top. The website, yeah, we know. A lot with the OSAC scholarship support. And that included lots of different things that I don't have a lot of time to go into, but you'll hear more after we get all the results. You want more site and coordinator support, which made me really happy. With COVID, some of you know we started similar work that Rochelle and Stacy are doing with the Career Connections or Coordinator Connections, where we started meeting with you in the summer. And so I was happy to see that you want more of that. So we're going to be looking at how can we provide more site and coordinator support. And then Aspire materials need a serious update. So we are also working on those. Why Aspire? This was my favorite question. So happy with this question. Number 1 is mentors, and that is great because we have always been a volunteer mentoring program. With the expansion of allowing staff to mentor and doing some other things with mentoring and how the program looks, I was still happy to see that mentors are a huge piece of the program. Students came next. These are probably neck and neck. Why Aspire? Because you're getting college info and connections. This was my favorite. It provides an infrastructure. This, I think, is most important for our program to continue getting funding from the state. And it's our biggest thing to say we're helping these sites provide infrastructure. And then I love the college going culture. Now we all just need to start saying a career in college going culture. This is a direct quote. Aspire is here to funnel students' personal interest and abilities towards a satisfying and hopefully rewarding future. So thank you to those of you who filled this out. We take it very, very seriously. So if you've not submitted, please submit. So what's next for our team? Well, we have been coming together because, as you know, we have almost a brand new team. 2 of them started in August, 1 of them started in September. So we have been coming together as a team, making sure that we understand and agree on Aspire is X. We're not quite there yet because all of you have made that messy for us. And we're trying to figure out, like, what is the new Aspire? And so we are really having conversations. Like, we've had some big conversations about what do we think Aspire is. So we know what Aspire is today, and we're getting a really good idea of where Aspire is going. We are working on an inventory and reassess. I'm getting chills right now. Okay, anyway, love this program. Okay, we're doing an inventory and a reassess. So we're looking at everything that we have as a program, and we're reassessing it and then reassessing it and reassessing it. At the same time, we're working on a strategic plan. It's growing, it's exciting, and then we're going to roll this out. So you'll be hearing bits and pieces between now and the end of the year, and you will know what kind of data we're going to be looking at in the future. You're going to get a first look at, just what we think the program is going to look like. We're in for a huge expansion between now and fall. Our boss wants us to get anywhere from 60 to 100 new sites. So we have a lot of work happening on our end, which is very exciting for us. So feel free to touch base with your access specialist. You can always call me to find out, hey, what's going on? What's going on with you guys? And we'd be happy to share that. So here's my contact information if you want it. Rochelle, I hope that is exactly what you were looking for. Just know that always, and I hope you know this, that your voice is so important. So important. And we really value the evaluations you complete. We look at them, and I think now more than ever, we've got these 3 new talented employees with Rochelle, Kurt, and Andy. that we are cranking out more work than I have ever seen since I've been with the program since the beginning in 1997. So you can expect a lot. Put your expectations up there. Sorry, team. I think you can handle it though. So thank you for your time. And I probably can entertain maybe a couple questions, Rochelle. I'm looking at the time. I might have like a time for 1 or 2 questions if you have any.
Can I jump in, Lori?
Yes, of course.
Kathy McGinnis with Salem Kaiser School District. This is a comment, not necessarily a question. I'm just really excited about the growth in the last few months. And just to say thank you to you, Lori, because you know that over the years, Salem Kaiser has taken its own twist on Aspire and tried to make it our own and help support and share information with you in any way we felt that it was valuable. I want to also just put a nice shout out to Rochelle, only because 1, you took her from me, but 2, she's amazing and doing great work. And our Aspire program is, again, like you said, we've done a lot of twisting, turning, trying to make it as we go. It's never a done deal, never, ever. It's always having to be looked at, examined, and how to keep making it bigger, better, faster, smarter, whatever you want to call it. But it's been great having Rochelle on the other side to work with, super fun. Having her to be a part of our team here as we keep moving and molding. Our Aspire program's off to a good start this year under the circumstances. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. And we're very happy to have Rochelle. So thank you for sharing her. All right, maybe one more. Yeah, Ronnie.
Yeah, I know that as I was listening to your comments, you spoke about career. And I think that what we might want to look at is how we can separate career versus those kids that are that are graduating and saying, hey, I just want a job. And it's because sometimes they're not looking at it as a career, they're looking at it as a way of sustaining themselves. And how can we do a better job in helping those kids who's not looking at, okay, I want to be a dental hygienist, I just want a job.
Yep, definitely. That is definitely on our radar. Thank you for that. And as always, continue telling us the things that are most important. Thank you, everybody. You know how to find me. I'll be here through the end. Oh, it looks like we have one hand raised and then we need to move on. Kimberly.
I was just going to say thank you for your pivot so fast and bring to attention that I asked Lori for something on the website to be added the other day for a button. And I think it was added in like 3 minutes. I was super excited.
Okay, now that expectation don't set. It just happened to like everything was perfectly aligned. But within a day, I hope. Thanks, Kimberly. All right, Rochelle, thanks for the time.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you for your continued input. For those of you who haven't turned in that survey, as you can hear, it's really important that you do that because your voice means a lot to us. So I want to pivot now to our topical event for this coordinator connection. We're really excited each month to be able to provide you with some additional information. And this morning, Elaine Powery from the Dalles High School is going to be sharing with us. She has been an Aspire coordinator. This is going on her 6th year. So she started out in 2017 and definitely has learned a lot and has a lot of wisdom to share with us. Not only has she been an Aspire coordinator, but she finished her bachelor's degree from Boston College back in the day, and also in 2014 finished a postgraduate certificate program specifically in college admissions counseling, which gives her a great insight into this work that is going to be shared and talked about. In her free time, she just loves hanging out with her husband. They are now empty nesters. They have together put 6 of their kiddos through college. And so that comes with a lot of personal experience in itself. I'm sure she'll probably share some of that experience with you today. So the way this is going to work is we're kind of going to tag team this. I have some specific questions that she has put information together about and is going to share with you based on the questions that I ask her. So we're going to transition, and Elaine, welcome. The first question I'd like to ask you is, when a student submits an application to a college, what is it that happens at that college office? What are the things that happen on the college end?
Right, thanks, Rochelle. So basically, I'm going to try to keep this, basic points, so it's not too overwhelming with the amount of information that I'm giving, but just a general idea of what's happening behind the scenes once your students submit their applications. So first of all, the time of year that we are in right now is called reading season. And generally this goes from anywhere from November through early March or even late March. It all depends on the college's schedule of when they notify students of their acceptances. But generally speaking, we are in the thick of it right now of reading season. So what happens when the student submits their application and all of the supporting materials have been received from the college or by the college? And so that would be transcripts if required, letters of recommendation if required, school reports, counselor recommendation, all of that. Once they download all of that information, the file is considered complete and it is ready to be opened to be read. Most colleges are going to recalculate the student's GPA. So, and they base that on the 5 core courses, which would be English, math, science, social studies, and a world language. Then they look at the overall GPA. And colleges are going to weight the core curriculum, the core GPA, based on whether the class is an AP, an honors, dual credit, community college credit, IB credit, and they will give it a weight. How they weight it is very much of a mystery to all of us. They all have their own system. Some might give gold stars, some might give jelly beans. They all have their individual way of how they apply the weight to that transcript. Several colleges use what's called a self-reported academic record instead of a transcript, and only require that final transcript if the student is accepted and decides to enroll. So one of the things that I think a lot of the students don't understand is those admissions reps that come to our high schools, whether it's in person or Zoom meetings, and they are presenting their college to the high school students. Those are the same people that are reading the applications. And I always like to tell students that when these reps are meeting with the students, they can sort of treat that like a little mini interview. And it's really great for those students to ask questions, learn as much as they can about the school, but that also helps to leave a little bit of an impression on that admissions rep when they go to open that file and read it and say, oh, right, I remember meeting with so-and-so from that high school. The other thing they do is, and this is maybe more selective colleges do it this way, but not necessarily. Most of them are going to read all of the applications from a particular high school on the same day. So they are looking at all those students that come from your high school that have applied to their college in one reading session. And the other thing is, this is the other reason that having a school profile that is sent with your students' documents is so important, because the college, the admissions reps that are regional know your high school. They know what to expect from your high school, but the larger admissions committee may not. So having the context of what your school is all about is very, very important to them. Another interesting thing that people, the students especially, find shocking is the average amount of time that is taken on an entire application, including the essay, is 7 to 10 minutes, and a decision is made. Sometimes it's not a clear yes, you're in, or no, you're not. And what happens is it goes into this other pile that's called going to committee. When they go to committee, that means that they are presenting their student, that the individual admissions rep is presenting the student that they are advocating for. And they go into the whole admissions team committee and they present the student, and then the committee as a group votes on the, applying, or admitting or denying the student. And then finally, once everything is all done, on a given day, students are notified of their acceptance.
All right, Elaine, I have a quick follow-up question to that last statement. How are students usually notified of their acceptance?
Okay, so but before they get notified, an important thing for students to do is to go, once you've turned in that application, once you've submitted, give it a week to 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, and the student should log into their student portal and make sure that everything has been received by the college. It's also a great idea to shoot a quick email to your Aspire coordinator and your school counselor, just to let them know that you submitted an application to that college. As far as how the students are notified, it's shifted a lot over the years. It used to be that they, when it was an acceptance, they'd get a big fat envelope in the mail and rah rah, and many schools still do that, and you open it and confetti flies out of it and everything. But for the most part, students are finding out by logging into their student portals, and they'll often be sent an email saying, log into your portal, your notification is there. One of the things that school counselors get extremely annoyed about, and I will admit it's annoying, sometimes a student submits an application, and depending upon the system your high school uses, you may use something like Naviance or Score or Maya Learning or whatever. And the counselors are sending the documents and everything through that. And sometimes what happens is the student submits the application, and all of a sudden they start getting these automated text messages and emails from the colleges saying, we need your transcripts. We need it. And it's like, calm down, colleges. Your schools the high schools are going to send them. Give them a minute. So I know high school counselors are really annoyed, and believe me, they let the colleges know that that's annoying. But the most important thing that I know you all are doing is your students have to follow the directions that are given by your high school. So however you have them request transcripts, however you have them request letters of recommendation, the students need to follow your directions. Does that answer that one, Rochelle?
I think so.
Okay.
So. Great. So the next question is, how does the student, did the student receive their decision of admission? We just kind of talked about that.
Oh, I did just kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
I think there were a few more things that you wanted to add about that. section.
Yeah, I think I combined that with what do they do after, what does the student do after they've submitted their
Right.
application? I kind of jumped to the third question, sorry.
That's okay.
So I did cover that.
Okay.
They get an email or they get a letter or combination of those and log into their student portal. One thing I did want to chat about quickly is if a student is deferred. So in other words, if they have applied early action or early decision, and I'm going to share my screen here with you to show you what the admissions options in higher education. And most of us are familiar with regular decision. That is simply the standard date for which all students need to have their applications in by. And there's something called rolling admission, which means that you basically apply whenever, give them a couple weeks or so to process everything, and you get your decision on a rolling basis, usually a few weeks after you apply. Early action means that you're applying early, usually around November 1st of your senior year, and then you find out early, usually around the middle of December, but you don't have to make a decision to attend any particular college until May 1st of your senior year. So the three first ones that we're looking at here, regular, rolling, and early, you'll see at the bottom it says non-binding. And so that is exactly what that means. You have all the way until May 1st of your senior year to make a decision about where you're going to attend. The two other ones are early decision and restrictive early action. And with early decision, the way I help people keep it straight is think of it as I'm making a decision to attend one specific school. That's early decision. I'm deciding. It is considered binding. The student, the parent, and the school counselor all have to sign a contract. It is basically a commitment on the student's part that if they are admitted, they will attend that school. There is one, let's say, ethical way of getting out of an early decision contract, and that is if the college does not offer a financial aid package that meets the needs of the student. The final one, which is fairly rare, is called restrictive early action. And some private institutions that tend to be, we like to call them the highly rejective institutions, have a policy where you can only apply to their school early. You can apply to any public college or university early, but you cannot apply to any other private college early. So again, that's pretty rare. Those are like the Stanfords and Princetons of the world, so we don't come across that as much, but it is something to be aware of. So I started off by saying, I'm going to stop screen sharing now. I started off by saying, if a student is deferred, what happens? They're often deferred to regular decision, and a student can submit some supplemental materials to help booster their application. But again, only if allowed by the particular college. So they can send something called a letter of continued interest. They can send an updated transcript. They can send, say a student won an award for something, or got some sort of recognition, or the robotics team won something. They can send any additional information as allowed by the particular college to help support their application. And some colleges will even allow an additional letter of recommendation too. One thing that I came across this year, and maybe it's happened before, but it's new to me, is I had students under the impression they would go to their student portal and go to see what their decision was. And they were under the impression that they had to pay a deposit to see their admissions decision. That is never going to happen. And I think it's sneaky of one college, public school in Oregon, that is doing this. And I pointed out to students, no. You click here to see your, and then of course the screen popped up, congratulations, you're in. And then again, the student does not need to commit to that school or any school, unless it was early decision, until May 1st. So the student does not pay to see an admissions decision. So really help guide your students on that. I had never seen this before, and I think it's a little shady. But anyway, it's my opinion.
Thanks, Elaine. As we were talking and you were telling me all these things that are admissions related, I asked you the question, what is your number one piece of advice for students that coordinators can share with students about this process?
Yeah, the number one advice I think goes hand in hand. Check your emails. Students, check your emails. And follow the directions that were sent to you. I have had students have missed scholarship opportunities. They, whatever messages from Fafsa saying they're selected for verification, messages from colleges, you name it. They have to check their emails. And I always tell kids, when these 17-year-olds are ruling the world, and it can't come soon enough for me, email probably won't even exist. Texting may not even exist. They'll have some new technology. For now, us old people and people that work in financial aid and admissions and college professors communicate through email. And students just have to get into the habit of using, first of all, professional sounding email address and checking their emails.
Thanks. So once you get through that admissions process, how does FAFSA or ORSA relate to admissions? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I know this is kind of going to be a lead in to our topic, I believe, for next month, when they're going to take a deep dive into financial aid. But basically, when the student fills out the Fafsa, and in some cases, some colleges require an additional financial aid form called the CSS profile, but all students are going to do the Fafsa. Once that information is submitted to the Fafsa, and very importantly, the college is listed on the Fafsa where the student is applying, that information is then sent from the Fafsa, the federal government, to the colleges that were selected or were entered on the Fafsa. Some students are under the impression that if they add the college on the Fafsa, they're done. And they didn't even have to submit an application. Not true. The student still applies to the college. And once the college admits a student, then they will start their financial aid file for them. And the college is the one that distributes the financial aid. So if the student is eligible for a Pell Grant, an Oregon Opportunity Grant, work study, anything like that that's based on a FAFSA, the college takes care of that for the student. And again, the school doesn't do anything with it, with the information that was sent to them, until the student has applied to the college and is accepted. And again, most of this information is now relayed to students, usually through email, but then very importantly through the student portal on the college website. is where they're going to go in and look at their financial aid and accept their financial aid awards.
Yes.
So that's pretty much it.
That's
Super
a
basic.
lot of great information for our coordinators out there today. Thank you very much. And like Elaine said, just a little teaser for next month. We are going to be having, our topic is going to be on financial aid and scholarships. And we're going to kind of be looking at some higher level financial aid questions that come up when you are when you're assisting students with that application. We'll talk a little bit about financial aid verification in addition to financial aid professional judgment decisions. And then timely enough, we are going to be approaching the deadlines for our OSAC scholarship. So we'll be giving you some final helpful tips and information about the scholarship application so you can help your students finish up those applications. But right now I would love to open it and ask Elaine any questions that you might have. We have a few more minutes to do that, actually several minutes that we can do that. Kelly, do you want to, you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question?
Just was agreeing about the impression that several students in what we've seen too is several students think that they need to put a deposit right now. And I don't know what has changed in that regard. Maybe it's all related to this one school that you're talking about, but it does seem like several kids have come to us and said, oh, I put my deposit in already. And I'm like, wait, you did? You don't even have your financial aid offer yet. So I don't know what the difference is.
I can speak a little bit to that, Kelly, and without getting into too much detail, NACAC, which is the National Association of College Admission Counseling, is kind of the overall governing board for both colleges and universities and high schools, school counselors, independent consultants. Long story short, about 2 years ago, they were forced to lift a lot of restrictions they have on colleges of what they're allowed to do. Long story short, there was going to be this big lawsuit, and NACAC, quite frankly, does not have the funds to fight it. And so they're relying on colleges to move forward ethically. But one of the things was they were never used to be able to pressure students to deposit. So a little bit of a change. And we just have to keep reminding students, unless you did that early decision binding contract, you do not have to deposit until May 1st. And that date has even gotten a little wishy-washy. So I have noticed an increase in students getting pressured. I've also noticed incentives being offered to apply early decision, which has up until this time has been considered highly unethical. So there's a shifting landscape. Last couple of years, they've been calling college admissions has entered the Wild West. And we're out here on the West Coast, so I don't know if we should take that personally or not. But anyway, so it's sort of, but again, we have to continue to advocate for our students and teach our students to advocate for themselves. That no, excuse me, I'm not like that one student I was telling you about. Her thing was deposit. She hadn't even opened the part of the portal that told her she was admitted. And she thought she had to pay $100 to see if she was admitted. That's not fair.
No.
Right?
It's not. Thank you for that. And I do have several people asking or requesting that PDF that you shared. Is that something that you can put in the chat, or will you be able to send it out to me?
You know what I'll do? Yeah, let me send it in a link. And it's on, you all should, oh, let me just do a
Actually,
little plug here.
It's
Um,
actually already in the chat.
Oh,
We got it
is
already
it?
for you guys.
Oh, Kurt, you're so awesome.
Excellent.
To be fair,
Thank-
Lori did it, but I'll take
Oh,
credit.
Lori's even more awesomest.
Can you repost it at the bottom of the chat? Find it and repost it for us.
Of course.
Also, we do have question. The next coordinator connection will be on Wednesday, February 9th, and it will be from 2:30 to 3:30 rather than 9:30 to 10:30. We felt like every other month we wanted to switch it up because we know some people, mornings are a little bit better. Some people have afternoons more open, and we know that probably everybody is not going to be able to join us every time. But for your information, we are planning on recording these sessions, and we'll be able to send that out to you a day or two after the event. We always feel like being here in person is going to benefit you. You can ask your questions as you go along, but we understand that there's a lot going on in our schools that you are needing to be there for. So are there any other questions for Elaine as we move forward? You can type those in the chat and I'll ask them, or if you want to unmute.
Yeah, I think Janet had a question for Elaine.
Okay,
Do.
great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I've been doing this a long time and I feel kind of embarrassed. I don't know the answer, but I have two sets of parents this year that are absolutely refusing to do the FAFSA, saying they have enough money, blah, blah, blah. Does a college require the FAFSA regardless of financial aid? Does it just have, they don't?
No.
Okay,
No.
so these parents are right. They don't have to file it.
Correct. And,
Okay.
and depending upon the school where the student is applying, they would be considered, well, doesn't matter what school. If you don't do a FAFSA, you're considered a full pay student.
Full pay, okay.
Now, they still could, if they wanted to, offer some sort of merit scholarship to the student.
Okay.
But some, and not to get too into the nitty gritty here, but some schools are most schools, most colleges and university are considered need aware, meaning they take into the account the family's ability to pay.
Okay.
And so if a parent does not submit a FAFSA or a CSS profile, if the school needs it, they're basically signaling to the school that they are a full pay student.
Okay.
Okay. Likewise, submitting a FAFSA with a very, very high EFC can also signal to the school that they're a full pay student.
Okay.
So what I tell families that do not want to submit a FAFSA, and I do come across families, and some of you know that I'm an independent educational consultant in addition to working at the Dallas High School. And the families, some of the families I work with they just don't even bother. But what I tell people is there are two reasons. If you're not going to qualify for any type of federal Pell Grant or any need-based financial aid, there's two reasons to still submit a FAFSA. One is if you would like your student to take out a small student loan.
Right,
It
that's
doesn't
what I
have to be
say.
the full, it can be $1,000. Pay it back. It's a very secure, low interest, and it helps the student develop credit of their own. The other reason would be in the event of something catastrophic and it happened a lot the last couple of years. Parent lost a job, illness, death, major medical expenses,
Right.
whatever it might be. Having that FAFSA on file, the student can then go and ask for, and they're going to talk about this next month, professional judgment, which means
Okay.
the school can make a decision, that the financial aid officer can make a decision based on circumstances that have come about since you filed the FAFSA. And if you
Okay.
don't have it on file, they're going to be like, well, whatever.
Right, okay.
So those
All
would be
right.
the reasons. But your actual question, no, they do not have to.
Okay, well, I've used your arguments, but Thank you. So at least
Yeah, and
now
some
I
just
know
don't.
that.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then
Yeah, I just wanted to say, my daughter's school requires the FAFSA for her to get her grade, and we are not at all need eligible.
Mhm.
So I use that as an example. UP, I don't know if they're still that same way, they require it. And I like you tell every senior and their families to complete it. And especially those families that make a lot of money, that really, this is how it works, that if they know your full pay, it could help your kid get into that school. And it does work that way. But yeah, just as an example, I mean, my daughter does not qualify for need-based aid, but we have to complete it every year for her to get her merit scholarship. So
Yeah, a lot of colleges are like that. So
yeah, so I tell them, do it senior year. And then once you get into your school, and if they say, oh, no, we'll give you your merit scholarship without you doing the FAFSA for this year, then fine, but you need to do it senior year or you might not get it.
I
Right.
also think
Okay,
that at
thank
some
you.
schools, I know some private schools require you to have an application on file if you're applying for some additional scholarships at their school. So maybe you
Oh.
aren't financially needy and you won't be getting your state or federal scholar or grants, yet you would qualify for an additional scholarship that is then not going to be money out of the parent's pocket, but they could get based on merit or talent or other things at that school. So a lot of times that's the case. Also, my daughter goes to a private school and we didn't qualify for any need-based aid at grants or anything like that from the federal government. However, we were in that middle income area where we were able to get a university grant because we fell into that middle area. And so a lot of, yes, they may not get a grant from the federal government, but they may get university aid that they wouldn't get otherwise if they didn't
Have a
apply to
FAFSA.
just find out. So
Yeah, when you file your taxes, doesn't it ask something about the Oregon Opportunity Grant as well, even for people who didn't qualify?
I think those are questions that next week we can, or
Okay.
next month we can get into. We're getting a little bit into financial aid issues, but we'll go more in depth about those types of questions next month. All right.
Thank
Are there
you.
any other more admissions questions for Elaine before we pivot to our next section of the event?
I do have one quick one.
Okay.
As happened several years ago when there was in the recession, teacher shortage, et cetera, some of the colleges started waiving the 2-year foreign language requirement. Do we know if, because of COVID, there's any leniency happening with that now?
that's a great
Because
question, Janet.
So a lot of our students have had trouble taking and successfully the foreign language classes online, like, when we were not in person. That's why it's coming up.
Right, that's a great question. And the short answer is it depends. So it's
Okay.
going to be, and that's one thing I learned in my certificate program. Every college is different. Every college treats it differently. What I recommend doing, and I've had this come up over the years, even without COVID. And what I do is I have the student reach out to the admissions rep directly and ask and say, here's my situation. This is why I couldn't. And what I find, I know Portland State is lenient. I know Oregon State University is lenient. I think if they understand what the circumstances are, basically what I've been told is that they will require the student to complete the language requirement while they're in college.
Okay.
So obviously can't speak for every school, and it's a case-by-case basis, and they usually want to know why.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
And
that's
the
great.
big thing to remember right now, and just going back for half a second to that high school profile that I hope you all have, and if you don't, I'd be happy to help you create one. The profile gives context. It shows what your high school is so that they can see what's going on at your high school. And on our profile, we actually have a COVID statement. What happened at the Dalles High School from, you know, the whole time we were in distance learning and how our grading changed and everything. So it's very helpful for
Okay.
colleges to have that information.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
And in the chat, thank you, Nathan. Nathan from Milwaukee said that he's had a lot of students who speak a second language take the test, the stamp test,
Yes.
and colleges waive their language requirement that way. So that is also another avenue if you have a
We have-
student that already
Yeah.
speaks a second
And-
language.
And a student can also get the Oregon Biliteracy Seal as well on their diploma if they demonstrate that proficiency as well.
Excellent.
And I've
I'm
also
sorry,
heard, so we have the kids take the CLEP exam. I don't know if that's different.
Up and stamp we use.
Okay. And then the other thing they could do if they didn't do CLEP, but our kids get like 12, 16 college credits for that. It's awesome. Or they can take the AP exam and qualify that way. So there are some options for students for sure.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Elaine. Elaine is actually going to be helping us in our next session. What we're going to be talking about, since this week we have mid-year reporting going on. We know that there are a lot of new coordinators that we are excited to have aboard, but this is the first time that you may be doing these mid-year reporting. So what we wanted to do is kind of go through the process with you. And we're going to do that right now. So what we thought is we would take you through what it looked like to do your mid-year reporting. And I'm going to share my screen to get us going here. Can you see this? Can you see the coordinator checklist?
Yes.
All right. So if you are unfamiliar where to go to get into the partner portal, it should be something that you might want to have bookmarked on your desktop. But if you want to get to it easily, you can go here to the coordinator checklist, and it will take you to the login page where you will use your username and password. That should have been something that all of you should have be able to get into. You were sent, and if you need, if you try to get in and your password isn't working, just contact your Aspire Access specialist and they can reset your password or send you the opportunity to reset it. But all of you should have access and are able to log in to your portal. Can you see that screen then? Is it showing the partner portal?
It's currently showing your login.
Okay, perfect. So you put your username and your password. And then once you jump in, you will get to this site. And this is a support mode. We're going to be using Elaine's information from the Dalles High School I will actually walk through what it looks like to go through this high school progress report. So you'll go into the high school. We're at the Dalles High School. Oops. Did it not? Oh my goodness gracious. I am going to, it timed me out, I think, since I did it ahead of time. So you're going to have to be patient with me, or internal tools is having an issue. Just a second. Is anybody else able to get into internal Aspire specialists? Because I've got a great big, well, this isn't going to work the way I thought it was going to. Hold on, it's still thinking. I'm really sorry about this, you guys. Okay, let's try this again. Aha. Working. It says it's working.
You know, sometimes I say I'm working when I'm really not too, Rochelle, so.
So the computer is going along with that. All right. So let me go real quick. I'm going to go in the back end way. Go into the DALs.
So for those of you who don't know, this is what it's like to see the portal on our end. So
Thank you.
you get a tour of behind the scenes, so to speak.
All
So
right.
things that
There's
take you 1 or 2
Elaine.
clicks takes us like 12.
All right. So now we are back. We are in support mode, which means this is what you will see when you log in. Thank you for your patience. You go into the high school report. Here's the Dalles High School, and you go to 2021-22 school year. And this is where you will enter your numbers. One of the things that I do want to mention, and I've had a lot of new coordinators start their progress report, and then they get interrupted and they leave and come back, and they may add things and then they come back and they can't get back in. So once you've hit the add button, which is at the end, that submits your report and you can't get logged back in. So wait till you have some time to do this all at once. Maybe look at these areas that you're going to have to report and then do it in a separate location, like in a spreadsheet or something. So then you can just quickly go in and add all of your numbers at one time. But not knowing that, a lot of people tend to have to do it, hit add, and they want to come back. If you are in that circumstance where you've done that, reach out to your Aspire Access specialist and send them the list of your numbers and your what you would have report, because then we have to go in and do that on our back end. So unfortunately, currently our system is not able to edit. But going back to actually doing the reporting, the first section that you will get to is this first area of grade level enrolled students. And what enrolled students, it's specifically students who have completed the permission form and are being served by Aspire at your school. So it can be presentations, college and career reps that come into the school and they're meeting with people. You can be meeting with them, occasionally. And then they're just receiving information about college career access, those types of things. Any student that is participating in Aspire would be put in this enrolled area. And for Elaine, her numbers, she has 0 enrolled freshmen, focusing on some of the upperclassmen. She has 7 sophomores, 31 juniors, and 62 enrolled seniors. And then the next section is another grade level section, and it's called matched students. So matched freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. And these are students that have actually been matched with either a staff or a volunteer mentor. And they're usually receiving more individualized guidance through one-on-one or group mentoring type activities. And so these students at the Dalles High School is 0, sophomores, but for juniors, there are 8 that are matched with a mentor, and then seniors, 52 matched seniors. And so what you see here is there can be a difference. Sometimes they are exactly the same, but sometimes they're different, and that's okay. All right. Moving on, you will need to list your volunteer mentors and their hours. So over the last few months, you should have been keeping track or having your volunteer mentors keep track of the time that they spend with students, or working for Aspire type related activities. For instance, when I was a coordinator, I always made sure that my mentors knew to count their volunteer hours where they would be supporting a student, but it may be on their own time because they're researching for the student, they're looking up information, they're doing things that are Aspire related. So to count those hours and not just the time that they're meeting with the student, anything that's going to be helping support the student can also be counted. So at the Dalles High School, they have 13 mentors, and that's and then the hours is 165 hours that those individuals have done over the last few months. And then finally, you report the staff mentors that are working out of your school. And the Dalles has 3 staff members who are acting as mentors with 1,700 or 1,760 hours. This is really important that you are counting the time that you are working on Aspire related activities, that one-on-one time working directly with students. Anything that is Aspire, career, college readiness, hour times, that's important to count. And then in the end, you will add, and this is what submits your numbers. So now you will see your final report is all done there. And Elaine, you are fully done with your high school progress report. So what I'm going to do now is I would like to open it up for questions. Lori Ellis, who is our administrator for Aspire, has been here longer than any of the Aspire specialists here on the job. So this is our first mid-year reporting, and we're still learning as well. So she's going to start fielding questions. I would love to have you put those in the chat and I can ask those to her, or you can just unmute and ask Lori your questions if you have any that you have. Anybody?
I'll stick my nose in here.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
I am not staff at the high school, but I am the coordinator of the Aspire program. Does that make me a volunteer, or do I put my numbers in under staff?
Do you get paid?
I get, yes, technically. It's minimal. I mean, it's
Like a stipend?
it's the stipend, yeah.
I would do it as staff hours.
Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you, Lori.
Okay. Yep, you're welcome.
Nathan.
Yes, ma'am.
You have your hand up, I think.
Oh no, I was just rubbing my face. It's all good.
Oh.
Seasonal itchy nose.
Okay, sorry about that. Anybody else?
Kate.
Oh, yes. Hi. Yes, I would like to ask, okay, so you said matched mentors. What about when, like, for every student that is an Aspire student, I'm spending individual time on quite a deep level, maybe not so much with the volunteer mentors right now, especially because of COVID. So does that act as a matched student?
It does. And I want to tie this in with the permission slip conversation. I hope I don't confuse this too much, but you can ask clarifying questions. This is us heading into the future. So what we've talked about as a team is that if you are a staff at your school, the student doesn't necessarily need a permission slip because your staff, thanks, Patty. Because of the liability with volunteers, it's important that the parent knows that there's a community volunteer, maybe looking at their financials, maybe looking at personal information of the student. But so in our law, it says if a student is meeting with a community volunteer, they need a permission slip. Our assumption that we're making is that if they're meeting with you, they don't need that. Or if they're meeting with a teacher, or if they're meeting with some other staff. So it could be that you look at the permission slips that you're getting in and try to match those students as best you can with volunteer community members. And then your Aspires, your school or site staff meet with students that don't have that. We still want the students, we still want the parents to be aware of Aspire and what's happening. So let's keep having this conversation so that, because if you don't have a permission slip, then how does the parent know what their student is involved in and what kind of conversations are taking place? So that's a challenge I put back out to you, and we'll continue asking that question throughout the rest of this year to figure out what we do with this.
Is there any way to make it a default that you have to choose to be out of Aspire?
Yeah, you can. So work with your access specialist on permission slip questions and process. What we would love to see is that it's in your registration packets, which we did eons ago for those of you who've been around. And the issue was we got so many, you guys got so many permission slips back that then the students were like, wait, where's my mentor? Let's not worry about that anymore because the program has evolved. It's better to get permission slips than not. So if you can put that in your registration packet and make it an opt-in, opt-out that the parent is doing with everything else, we'd love to work with you on that with verbiage. We've worked with a couple other sites on that to make sure that the right messaging is in there so the parents are aware of what's going on.
So you don't have like a blanket form. It's school specific? It's
school specific. Okay. Yep. Yeah, Rochelle's been bugging me for a generic, and it just your situations are all so different that I've not been able to do it.
Can you give us an example of the verbiage? I'm like, I would be able to put it into something, but I just don't know how to phrase that.
I will send out what the other person, the last email I sent to her. I don't know what she ended up completely using, but it's not exactly like information, but it's like, this is the kind of stuff we want you to include. And then we can keep going back and forth from there. So I'll send it to everybody that's on the call today, and then feel free to have a back and forth.
I'm still a little confused about the permission slips when I meet with students. So I have a number of students that I meet with. They don't have permission slips. So that's when I fill this in, I can say, they're enrolled into Aspire, even because they talk to Kate.
They're enrolled, they're matched, and you put yourself down as a staff mentor and your hours under staff hours.
Regardless of a piece of paper.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
I want to see some amens
Nathan,
or
you have your hand
hallelujahs.
Amen plus.
Hallelujahs. Thank you.
So
all right, Nathan.
I have some ways that I kind of work around the permission slip, especially with students whose parents don't feel comfortable filling it out or returning it, because I have a lot of students whose parents are like, I don't know who you are. So to create the student in my reporting, what I do is I start with the Aspire form. I fill out the student's name and their interests and where they're planning on going to school, or if they're planning on going to school. And then I make a file for that. And that in my mind says this student is now signed up with me. So like I have them on board. I may not have a permission slip with them yet, but they're in my mind, they're in my system. And then if a student wants to work with somebody outside of the school, I'll get a permission slip. But since we don't have volunteers at Milwaukee this year, no student has needed a permission slip. So what I'm now resorting to is I've made my own frequently asked questions sheet, which I send out to parents who are interested or want to know more about Aspire. That way they have the information, there's no obligation to sign, and the students and the parents feel a lot more confident with their student being part of Aspire.
Can you send that to me, Nathan?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Both of those pieces, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Looks like Elaine has one.
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe Nathan answered my question. I'm not quite sure to do with the students that I call drop-in students. They're not part of Aspire. They don't really want or need, or well, I think everyone needs a mentor, but so they just come in like, I've got a quick question, and a quick question turns into, me sitting there for half an hour helping them with stuff. How do I count those students?
So I would, if you can, do your best to count them as a matched student, matched with you.
Okay.
One of the things we're headed in the right, and we're headed in this direction is that we will basically be counting your junior and senior classes from now on going forward. We don't know how we're going to do that yet. We just talked about it at a staff meeting, so I have no answers for you. But basically, we know you're working with your juniors and seniors. Why would you need to report those to us separately? So you all have evolved this program so much that you're doing way more than what we say you are. So for now, just do your best to count the students. What we've decided is that, actually, Elaine, I lied to you. Put those students in enrolled.
Yeah.
So drop in students, put them in enrolled. And Rochelle, you feel free to correct me, because what we've decided, what our main thing is that when our director goes in front of the legislature to get money, we want to give him a number. So we're going to give him the enrolled number, like Aspire proper is serving all of these students. And then these particular ones are in a matched mentoring relationship. So think of it that way. So like all of your students and then specific matched.
And the specific matched should really be both the matched students with staff and volunteers. All right. Because we know that you are sitting having conversations regularly with these students. So the enrolled amount may be, higher than your matched, but we know that we want you to, count both the volunteer and staff mentoring opportunities that you have.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jen.
no,
You're on.
I was telling my student to like signal when he needs my help.
We know you, Jen. We know that was for us.
No, what I have to say is not that important. I don't even remember what it was. No.
Oh my gosh.
I was just, how they're used to, and I have to have my mask on. You know how it used to be, there was that one at the end of the progress reports about how many other students have you interacted with? And we have a college and career readiness class for seniors, and I'm in there all the time, writing curriculum in the computer labs. And so I used to include all those contacts, like 30 kids in a class. I met with 7 classes last week. Okay, that's 210 contacts. And then
put them in enrolled.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't double count.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
okay, but they won't be matched. They won't be matched.
That's okay.
Right. So I could just look at my senior list. And okay, I have 100 at whatever seniors. I have that many enrolled.
Yeah.
As long as you're touching them.
If we look at your numbers, when your access specialist looks at your numbers, if one of your numbers is way higher than your enrolled, they're going to call you and say, what? So you count the numbers of students that you have a touch. If it's a mentoring touch, you're putting them in students matched. If it's a drop-in or a classroom or an activity or an event, you put them in enrolled.
Okay, so then when at the end of the year, when we do the participation report, you want me to include the names and birth dates for all of our seniors that were in those classes that I touched?
Yes, we would love that.
Okay.
And Nathan, you haven't been duping yourself. This is new because of all those that have gone before you. They have been loud and have talked long years. And so this is them. You can thank them.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Rick.
Sorry, my phone just started ringing.
Of course.
Yeah, just ignore them. Anyhow, I've got 2 quick questions kind of based off the conversation and the way it's going. First off, I've already submitted my report for this first part of the year. Do you us to redo it with this new information?
Reach out to your access specialist
Okay.
with your new
And then-
numbers. Yes, please.
And then the other thing is, I was hearing you're saying drop-ins, we're going to report them as matched because we're talking to them.
Sorry, I misspoke. Count those as enrolled.
Okay. So
if they're mentored, they go in matched.
And then, so to be mentored, they have to have their permission slip in.
Yeah, and be meeting, no, they need a permission form if they're meeting with a community volunteer.
Okay.
And then if they're in a mentoring relationship, so they're coming in like 3 times, they need multiple help, then you would count them as matched.
With you as a staff member.
Got it. So if we're meeting,
or as a
whether
community
they have
volunteer.
whether they have
Right.
that in or not.
If they're, yes, but please, if they're working with a community volunteer, please have a permission form.
And if they're working with paid staff, then it's not as important.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we'll do
I
our
think that's
best to
it.
get this written up too. This is kind of new for us in the last few weeks that we're like, okay, we need to do something about this.
Perfect.
Yep.
That was
Elaine.
it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the questions.
So I have a follow-up question because I was going to ask the same one that Jen just asked about all the contacts that we have going into classrooms and all the times we're checking on students. But one of the things that you guys got rid of a couple years ago was the overall number of people that we were connecting with. Like, for example, if I have a financial aid night at my school and 20 people come, including parents, I used to count that. And I would think those are important numbers for you to have.
The numbers aren't necessarily important because they were inflated. And so we would get those for you. And Juan, our director, would be like, we don't even have this many students. We don't have this many seniors in the student population of Oregon. So he couldn't report on that number because it was a duplicated head count. What we've done is when you work with your access specialist and they go down that list with you of, are you doing events? Are you doing career fairs, college fairs, financial aid nights? Now what we're going to have our director do when he goes to Ways and Means in front of the legislature is to say 99% of our Aspire sites are doing these activities to reach all of their seniors, all of their juniors. So that's how we're going to tell the story.
Got it.
Yep. So yes, it is important, but we now know that you all are working with students and parents and having these events, and that's what we're going to report on instead.
Got it. That makes sense.
Okay. So Linda asked if you could have this in writing. We are doing our best. We're kind of making this up on the fly. So if your numbers are weird when you send them in, your access specialist will reach out to you and work with you on it. So don't be like, oh my God, I have to go back and fix all these. The most important numbers are going to be the ones at the end of year, which we will definitely have some clear direction. So just do your best on this. And is it Alira?
Thank you. I have a quick question that is it might be slightly off topic, but so let me know if it is.
Sure.
But so my understanding in the past with Aspire is that the sort of focus or target audience was historically underserved students, but that doesn't seem to be in the language on the Aspire site anymore. So I was curious, since we're talking about, drop-in students and matching students with mentors, et cetera, is that still Aspire's target audience?
So we have always been an all-comers program. So what's really important to us is that you're opening the program up to all students. So it's not underserved. It's not 4.0. It's not college going. I really hope you get the students that are falling through the cracks. I think those are the ones we really need to reach, but this program is for everybody. And if your access specialist sees that most of your kids are college going that are getting the supports, they're going to be like, hey, let's talk about getting into your special ed classes or working CTE or things like that. So we really hope that you're getting the word out 9 through 12. And providing some type of services to them. We realize, you're limited in your time, but it is an all comers. And I feel like I'm contradicting myself, but underserved students are always a high priority.
Lori, can I speak to that a little bit? I know that Portland Public Schools are newly on board, and Alara, you are one of those coordinators. And so when Portland Public Schools, their district decided to bring college coordinators aboard, one of your core goals is to reach those underserved populations. And that is a focus of your job in general. And they want to use the Aspire program to do that. And so, yes, your job as a college coordinator is kind of geared towards that, but we want you guys to know that all students should be able to be involved in Aspire, but just knowing that your core focus for your position at Portland Public Schools is to reach out to these students. Does that make sense?
Good clarification.
Okay.
Denise.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to clarify, I know we could have talked about this a lot, but going forward, I'm doing a mentoring class for our potential graduates. And so they would be considered in the match category for this moving forward, correct?
You're meeting with them multiple times and they have a relationship
every
with
week,
you.
Every week for an hour.
Yep. I'd put them as I'd put matched.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
And for those of you who are on the call, we are well past our 10:30 mark. And so if you are done and you've had your questions answered, you may leave, and we hope to see you next month. But if you still have questions or want to see where this conversation leads, you are welcome to stay aboard until we have dwindled our questions down to none. So I just looked at the clock and we've been having such great discussion. I just wanted to break in and say that. So thank you for being here. Any other questions?
And again, I think this is a good time to remind people that if you've previously submitted your progress reports, but with this new information, you realize there's an error, email your access specialist with the corrected numbers and we can make those corrections for you.
And so I am just going to clarify this. I have a Canvas page and I've just recently pushed that out to freshman to senior, and they're asking me to go into every class.
Nice.
So every English class and deliver that information and invite them all in. All of those children then are enrolled.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
I know, right? Good job, y'all. You did this.
Thank you. Thank you. It makes so much sense.
Right? Good.
Okay, but just so I have it right, they're enrolled, but we don't count them twice. So in other words, I can't have more enrolled students than I have in a particular grade level.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So I could, like what Kate's talking about, I could count all my seniors.
Yes.
Because we go into the
yes.
too.
So the way, Elaine, the way I would do it if I were you is I would take my total number of seniors and I would just subtract the number of matched seniors. And then I would put that number as my enrolled seniors. That way we're not double counting, because by default, matched students are already enrolled into the program.
Right.
So if that makes sense to you. So if you know you're working with every senior, then I would just take that number of seniors, I would subtract my matched seniors, and then that remainder, that balance would end up in my enrolled senior category.
Okay.
But that's only if you know you're working with every, like if you're going into every senior class or every senior English class.
So I would have said that differently. So our team has some work to do. Jen, is that your understanding too? So our team will focus on this. We'll get something written. Do your best now, work with your access specialist, because there's a question in here from Courtney and I would have answered it differently than Kurt just did. So, but he's much more data than me. So I am going to trust him and we will work on some instructions and get it out. But again, for now, do your best. Interesting.
Yeah, because we need to have this in, by Friday.
Can
there's
we get an extension?
You have an extension.
Okay.
Like maybe making an official extension might
granted
with the directions, as backdated, but just having official directions with an extension would be really great, I think. So
yeah. I mean, to me, what makes sense is I take my total number of seniors as enrolled, say 100, and matched are the 80, you know,
Mhm.
or that are working with me or mentors. That makes more sense to me.
That's how I was thinking about it too, Jen. But then when
Yeah.
Kurt said that, I was like, oh.
Well, my only fear is we can't double
Mhm.
count
Well,
students.
that's not double counting because usually the enrolled are the kids that are unmatched too. So that's always
Yeah.
done it. I'm just including more enrolled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I usually do. So
So yeah, so
So-
our team will talk. Yeah, go ahead, Kurt.
I'll
I was gonna
wait.
say I was gonna say my math works only if you're working with every student in a grade level.
Mhm.
If you're not,
Yeah.
then obviously my little cheat sheet formula doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, and then of course it's also assuming that match students are working with site-based mentors and not community-based mentors to negate the permission slip situation.
So
But-
Courtney, I don't know if we have a solid answer for you. So access specialist that connects with Courtney, can you reach out to Courtney once we have a better answer? Or decide an agreed upon answer? And seriously, don't stress about it too much. These numbers are more for us to see how your program's running, for us to have conversations. We don't report these, we report the ones at the end of the year. So seriously, it's okay if you've reported and we need to change a few, or you need an extension.
I can answer Courtney's question now that I've had time to read it. So here's how I'm understanding your question, Courtney, and then Rochelle and Lori, please jump in. So you have 15 students total with permission slips returned. Of those 15 students, 8 are matched with mentors, presumably community or site-based mentors. So we know that your match number is going to be 8, and that's not going to change. Now, what I would do, so that we're not double counting students, is I would simply subtract your 8 from your 15, and that remainder would go into your enrolled students.
Yeah, and that's where I'm thinking that we would say you've got 15 students enrolled and 8 of those are matched and 7 of those are receiving other types of services. So I think our team needs to connect on this.
We do, because then we need to have, I think we need to have 3 categories.
Okay, so anyway, and I think so we don't have an answer. We will get together as a team. And this is great. Thank you for asking these questions, and we'll try to get better instructions and figure out the best way.
And here's the exciting thing as we wrap up today. We know that Aspire is evolving, and we are really, really excited about being able to count more of what you are doing at your sites. So that is the whole focus, and that's what we're really excited about. And I'm sorry there's a little bit of this confusion going back and forth. It's just showing you how new and innovative and excited we are to get this going out to you. So we will powwow and get back together with you. Do the best on this mid-year reporting. Just get the numbers in. If you want to adjust your numbers, great, but we will have more specific direction for you moving forward. Just do the mid-year progress report as you understand it, and we won't, whatever you do will be fine during this mid-year report. And then from here moving forward, we will have more clarified direction for you. But thank you so much for being here today. I think unless there are other things that you want to stay on for, I think we're wrapping it up, and I just really appreciate you guys all being here. I hope to see you next February.